June 6, 1983, and I'm interviewing my grandmother and my grandfather. Grandma?
Yes?
Do you remember any incredible stories your parents told you?
Yes, of course. I can tell you. Would you like to know how my grandfather came to America? He was the first one that came in and brought his family over.
Okay.
Is that right?
Let's hear about it.
All right. He was a man of about 31 years of age when he came over. He left his wife and 4 children there because he wanted to come and establish a home here for himself and the family. He landed in New York, decided to be a merchant of some sort. Well, in the beginning, all he could do was peddle objects. So he would take 2 valises and start to go from house to house, and in them were things for men to wear, like shoelaces, and to use brushes and combs, pocket knives, celluloid collars, that's what they wore in those days. And he also would sell arm garters. Did you ever hear of those?
No.
They were garters that you use on your sleeves, the men did. Pushed them way up, put garters up here, and that would keep their cuffs clean when they worked on the desk. And for women, it was needles and thread, laces, and whatever. He thought New York was too crowded for him, so he started to do his job up near Saratoga. He thought that was too crowded. He said, what am I going to do? I don't like New York City. And of course, the population was so small at that time, but he thought it was just too big a city for him. So he went down to the Pennsylvania Railroad Station. Do you know where that is? 34th Street, 7th Avenue.
No.
It was a very small station at the time. And he went up to the ticket teller and he said, look, I have $10. Will you give me a ticket out of New York City? Anywhere. So the teller said, fine. And he gave him a ticket to St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. And that's in the northwestern part of Pennsylvania. It's the second highest little city in the Allegheny Mountains. And there he began to sell his merchandise to lumberjacks, because there was a lot of woods there, and a lot of lumberjacks, and a lot of camps. So there they went, and he sold his merchandise, did very, very well, and gradually built himself up to a nice business, and he opened a store. And that was the time he brought his family over. This is the family. There were only 4 of them then. My mother is the second from the left. She was about 5 or 6. It took them about 25 days on boat to get to America. They settled there, and as they grew up, there were no elementary schools or public schools. It was a German Catholic town. It was settled in 1776. And all the schooling took place at the convent, where the sisters would teach them anything all the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, painting, china painting, and so on. There's one cute story about my mother, which would be your great-grandmother, right? They would take their lunch to school because it was such a distance from the home. Here's the home, right there.
Oh, yes. Is this it?
That's the house.
Yeah.
It looks small, but it's tremendous. It was very, very deep. They have what they call a gold living room, gold carpets, gold furniture, crystal chandelier, and a Victrola, and an upright piano. No TV, naturally, and no radio. I bet you think, how can they exist without it? But they did. They had a wonderful time there. Now, when my grandmother sent them off, they would go up with their lunches, because it's quite a distance. So my mother, the minute she got to class practically, she was hungry. So she would open up her little basket, bring out her hard-boiled eggs and start to crack them on the desk. And of course the nuns kept telling her, it's not time for lunch, you have to wait. They didn't speak English very well then, the children. She didn't understand too well, so she would close up her little package and sit there for a while, and then later on she would also crack the eggs again. By the time 12 o'clock came, she had finished her lunch. And she'd go home with the rest of the kids and have another one. Now let me see what else I can tell you about them. Can you remember anything else? Silence.
No.
Let me see. The store grew and grew. It became a department store. They had a clothing store for men. They had women's things too. Christmas time they had toys. There's an article here I'd like to read to you. Oh, my glasses, I think I need them. I don't know if you can see this picture. These are men I think this must have been 1900. They're dressed in the latest fashion of the times then. One has a Chesterfield jacket on, about half like this. They all wore derbies. One has a long coat with a cape. They all wore black shoes, I think. And I think the celluloid collars, probably. And my grandfather's name was Hyman Silman. So Mr. Silman's department store was the store that they all liked to go to because he was a very kind man and everybody liked him. So now here's the story about the fashions in those days and what they did when they came from the lumber camp. When the lumberjacks came to town on payday night, they went to Silman's store first of all. There in the cellar, they sloshed off under a tap and dressed and dressed. Mr. Silman had their black broadcloth suits, flowered vests, hard-boiled shirts, stand-up collars, string tie, walkover shoes, and derbies. And after being fixed up to meet polite society, they took off for the nearest bar. That one in the cellar of the old commercial hotel was a favorite. Some of them, who expected a more lively evening, kept their spiked boots on. And the next morning, they would make their tortuous way back to Mr. Silman's store. He would take their now soiled finery, get it cleaned up, and hang it on his racks, properly tagged, for their next visit to the town. Now,
Thank you,
what
Grandma.
else? Well,
Where did you first live? What town did you first live in?
St. Mary's. I was born in St. Mary's, Pennsylvania.
Oh, and Grandpa? Well,
No, I was born in New York City.
oh,
My father was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. His father was born in Germany and came over to Portsmouth. Portsmouth in those days was a large naval center, and his business was to outfit the sailors semi-annually. When they come in for summer, they would have to have white clothes, both officers and men. And then in the winter, they would change to their navies, both officers and men. And then eventually, Norfolk became a greater port for the warships to come in, where they refurbished them, where they took on coal. You know, everything was run by coal. All the ships burnt coal, and there was no oil. And it was a great rail center. So they moved to Norfolk, where business was greater and there was more activity. So my father, who was about the age of 20, apparently didn't like it in Norfolk, so he came up north. And he managed a hat store, managed and sold, at Cooper Union, which is the, I think it's Broadway and 8th and 9th Street. And he came up here.